So it's lesson 5, part 2. We've made some customizations to our product create and product index. We now want to work with our file uploads and then make some few CSS changes. So if we want to allow for file uploads, first thing we need to do is modify our product create view. We're then going to need to modify our product create post method, and then modify the index view to display the photos that we upload. So in Visual Studio, I'm going to go back to our product create view where we made a few changes in the last video. We're going to need to modify our form tag to allow for file uploads. So to do that, we're going to add the enc type equals multi-part form data. We did this last semester in our PHP form when we were allowing file uploads. So we're going to add that attribute on line 14 inside of our form tag. We also want to change this text box. Sorry, line 13. On line 31, we want to change our input from a regular text box to be a file input box. So I'm going to change the ASP4 to just say name equals photo. We'll give it an ID of photo, and we'll set the type equal to file. Okay. So now we can also take out actually we'll leave the validation. We probably don't really need it. I'll save my change. So just updated the input to be type equals file, changed ASP4 to name, added an ID, and we've added the encoding type to our form tag. If I go back and refresh, our text box should now appear as a browse button. So we can upload new files. We'll just give our page a chance to load, and our text box has become a browse button. The next thing I need to do is we need to create a folder to save the images. We've already got an image folder in www.root, so I'm going to create a new folder in here. I've already done it, but you won't have it in yours, so you'll need to create this folder. Inside www.root img, you'll want to create the folder called product-uploads. So you can just right-click your IMG folder, choose Add New Folder, and call it Product Uploads. I already have one, so I don't need to create a new folder. Then we want to go to our products controller, and you'll see we have two versions of the create method. We have a get that we've already modified. This is the method that loads our empty create page. We modified it by adding some sorting to our category dropdown in the last video. This time we're concerned with our post method. So in here, this is the method that processes the form post, adds a new product, and saves to our database. So we need to inject some code in here before we save. We want to upload a new file if we have one. So we're going to make a couple changes in the method header. The first one is we have to remove the photo field from the list of bound parameters. What this does is connect the inputs on our form directly to the matching properties with the same names in the model. We don't want to do this automatically for the photo because we need to check for an uploaded picture instead. So I'm going to delete photo from here. We're going to add a new parameter onto the end, which says this method also takes a parameter called type iForm file. And Visual Studio tells us this is a .NET Core object that represents a file sent with the HTTP request. And we're going to call it photo so that it matches the name of our file upload box, also called photo with a capital P. This name and this parameter have to match in order to be able to process our upload. So inside this if statement, if our model state is valid, meaning none of the validation rules of the model were violated, so our name has been entered and our price is within the allowable range, before we save the code, we want to check for and process a photo upload. We'll say if our photo, that's this parameter here, the uploaded file, it has a length property. If the length is greater than 0, that means the user browsed and uploaded a photo. First, we need to get the temporary location of the uploaded file. We're going to get the temporary file name that includes its path in server memory. We want to create a unique file name using the globally unique ID class in .NET. So this way, if two users upload a product photo with the exact same name, we're going to make sure we give each one a unique name. We use this class called GUID, G-U-I-D. It represents a globally unique identifier. So we create a new GUID. We'll add on a slash, dash in the middle, and then we'll add the original file name at the end. So mypic.jpg would become something like abc123-mypic.jpg. So if two users upload a file with this name, they'll each get a unique prefix in front of it. Then we want to set the destination path and file name. So we'll create a variable called upload path, and we want to point it to our product uploads folder in www root. So if I right click on this, I can just see where this is on my computer. So it's in C users. This is going to work. I could hard code this path in here. The problem is once I deploy my site to a web server, this path is going to change. So I want the path to be dynamic. We can use system.io library. We want to get the current directory. And then we're going to append on the path inside our application, which will be www root. These are double slashes, and I'll explain why in a minute. Product uploads. And then lastly, we'll append on our file name, our unique file name. In order to run this path.getTemp file name, you probably already got prompted to make a reference to system.io. So your file probably didn't have this on line 11 when you added this code. But if you just accept the reference to system.io, Visual Studio writes the reference and your error goes away. I was playing around with my controller, so I already had the reference in here. Now you'll notice I wanted to explain the double slashes. I left one of them out. The reason why we need double slashes is because the single slash is an escape character in a string in C#. So when I mouse over, it says, we don't understand this single slash. You need double slashes because the first one is an escape character, similar to JavaScript. So we've grabbed the temp file, we've created a unique name, and we set out our destination, directory, and final name. Now we want to use a stream to create the new file. So we'll create a stream variable. So we're creating a new file stream in our upload path. And we're going to set the mode as create. We're not opening an existing file. We're not deleting it. We're creating a new file. Whoops, don't need those curly brackets. And then we just call await because we're running asynchronous code we talked about last week. And we're just going to copy our file using our stream. So this code actually does the copying of the image file. Now this should copy the file, but we also need to save the name, our unique file name, as the photo property of our product so that the name is also saved to our database. So before we exit this loop, exit this if statement, we want to add unique file name as the photo property of the new product object. So we'll say product.photo equals our file name, the unique name that includes the global identifier. So not only should this save the file to our www root image product uploads, but it should then grab our unique file name and save that to the database along with the rest of the product. So it's important that this code happens, that we're checking the photo before we call add and save, not after. Otherwise, we won't have the file name saved to our database. So I'm going to build the project, and now I'm going to try it out. So I'm going to create a new product. I'm going to browse. I've grabbed we're going to try and create the product, and I want to see if my image gets uploaded and my new product has the correct image name saved to the product table in the database. So our product got saved, and now I've got this long, strange name. My original file name's at the end, but now I have this globally unique identifier in the beginning. So did our photo actually get saved? Well, let's check. If I look in Solution Explorer under www root img product uploads, if I expand it, I can now see, gives me a thumbnail of my image file. But the name is unique. So if I upload this same product, we'll just see how this works. I'll create a new product and delete it. I'm going to upload the same image file, and we're going to see that the GUID, the prefix on the file name, is going to be different. So the image, my original image, doesn't get overridden. I'll call it NBA copy, 1 cent. So I'm going to upload the exact same image, and we'll see how the GUID prevents that file from overwriting. So now this one has got a different GUID in front, and I now have 2 files with unique names. Even though it was the same original image, the GUID ensures there's no overwriting. Now I don't really need this one, so I can delete it. The last thing I want to do is modify the index method. Rather than showing the image name, we want to actually display this using an IMG tag. So we'll go to the product image and we'll fix that. So in our product image, on my line 44, it displays the text, the string. So I'm going to take this out. And I'll write a simple if statement. We're going to check if our item.photo not equal null. We'll generate an image tag. And Visual Studio automatically points to our www root folder for static assets. So it's in images, product uploads, and then we'll want to show the item.photo. So we're only going to get an image tag if the photo isn't null. So we'll refresh it. We may have to modify it a little bit. So our image should show up here. May need a little bit of formatting. Definitely needs formatting. Why? Because our image is huge. So let's shrink this down. We can try adding a class here of img thumbnail. We obviously don't want full-sized images. We may have to define our own class with a defined width, but we'll see what the Bootstrap thumbnail gives us. Still far too big, so I'm going to override that class. I'm going to go to my CSS and Site CSS. We'll maybe set the width at, I don't know, 75 pixels. I think my CSS is cached here. So I'll try in a private window. Now that's better. So we've just overridden the Bootstrap class. Okay. So we've added the encoding type and the input file on our form. We created the folder we needed. And in our controller method, we modified the method signature to allow for we unbound the parameter, we added an iForm file, and then we wrote the code to check for a file, copy it to give it a unique name and copy it to our final directory using a file stream. Then we grabbed our new file name and set the photo property of our new product equal to it. And now in our index view, we're checking for every record in the list. If there is a photo, we want to display that using a 75 pixel wide thumbnail. So there's our file upload. I want to make a few small other changes. People have asked, how can we do other custom things in the site design? Well, we can move things around in the views. We could also modify the CSS. So let's maybe change the default font and a couple of the colors so that the site is branded a little more closely with the logo, the great logo that Emily created. So first thing I'm going to do in the in my layout folder is I'm going to change the default font. I'm going to shared and layout. So in here, I'm going to add a Google font. I want to add the Roboto font as the default font. I'm going to use the Google Font API. I'm going to use Roboto as my default font. And then in my style sheet, in the body tag, I'm going to set the font family to Roboto. I'll open up the site. We should notice that the font is different all throughout. So you can see we've got a different font now. So we've overridden the default font that comes with our .NET Core template. We'll make a couple other CSS changes. I want to use the yellow and the green from Emily's logo. I want to use the yellow as my navbar background, and I want the green color as our standard color for links. So I'll go back to the CSS to do this. I'm going to override a couple other classes. I'm going to set my navbar light and I grab the yellow color from Emily's logo. I'm also going to change the link colors using the green. You can set these as to anything you like. I'm just using a private window so the CSS isn't cached. So my links are green, which is good. Got to change one more thing in my navbar. All the links are using the green from the logo. We're using the Roboto font. I think I've got to change one more thing in our layout. I've got to take out this BG white class in the layout. So I want to use the navbar light color that I declared in the CSS that came from the logo. So I've removed BG white from my navbar declaration on line 13 of the layout file. Now we're using the yellow from the logo as well as the green. You could do further customizations. We could change the default font color, maybe to use the navy from the logo. We could use it in our links. I'll leave the rest up to you. But at least it's starting to look a little more custom. You know, we could change the alternating background colors from gray. The last thing I will do on here is, because these images aren't mine, on the homepage, I'm going to put a link to the images where they came from. I'm going to go back to my Solution Explorer and under Views and Home, Product, images from I'll say this site is for educational purposes only. So they know we're not using their images for commercial reasons. And the last thing I'm going to do in the footer is actually put on a link to the GitHub, to my GitHub repository. So go back to the layout file. And in my footer, which I'll add here a target equals blank. In our layout, I'll add a link to the repository. So grab my link from GitHub. Let's view source code, target equals. And I'll just copy my GitHub repository link, if I can. I could get it from my browser, but I know I have it in Team Explorer. So I'll paste it, put in a link here to the source code in my footer. So now my site's looking a little more polished. You know, in your assignment, a link to your GitHub repository would be a good idea. And a homepage description. So I've linked. Let's make sure my link works. It does. And my link to my Git repository. Okay, so you can do similar customizations in your assignment. I will leave it up to you how much you want to customize, but you want to make it your own. Okay, we'll take a quick pause, and when we come back, we're going to look at how I deploy these changes to GitHub, and then how do we connect it to a website running live on Azure.